Good day, everyone. I'm Robin Termingham of the Olderhood Group, and my guests today are Olderhood CEO Bill Story. And we also have Ross Swan joining us live from Singapore. And Ross is a world-leading leadership coach and presenter. And we're talking about something today called the soul of leadership. I think this would be a fascinating conversation, gentlemen. How's everyone today?
We're fine. Nice and
Yeah.
warm in Singapore as normal, as well as Bermuda, I suspect.
Well, it's very hot. It's very
Yeah.
hot here.
Yeah.
So let me get started.
Mm.
I mean, I've read a lot of your material for some time, Ross, which I find to be particularly interesting. And I think in today's climate, it's probably more interesting than perhaps ever before.
It's true.
Um, being one of your underlying principles is, being able to develop managers to become effective leaders of people, which is one of the greatest challenges that organizations, I think, face today. In fact, I mean, what you're saying is that their sustainability depends on it. You think the need for proper leadership, and I use the word proper advisedly, um, is more today than ever it has been?
I, it's true. And I think the reason for that is that we have a changing mindset of the younger generation for a start. My generation, which is pretty similar to you, Bill, is that we tended to put up with a lot more. We were satisfied we had a job, all those sorts of things. So you just put up with, I don't call them leaders, I call them, poor bosses, poor managers, really, or a manager of a process. In other words, that's all they do is manage a process. They can't lead people. But you put up with it because I was taught by my parents, you're lucky to have a job. They
Yeah.
were born in the Depression, so they had that mindset that was instilled in them. These days, the older people in the workforce still put up with it, but not as much because they've had enough of it. But the younger generations don't put up with it because they're used to something different. They've never been taught you're lucky to have a job. They've been taught that you'll probably change your job every 5 years.
Yeah.
And it's even more happening more often now. So the leadership comes to the fore because the leaders shape the brand of an organisation. If you're a poor leader, you have staff with a poor attitude. Staff with a poor attitude does not attract customers.
Yeah.
So the only thing that keeps you apart from everyone else are your people, and that's got to come from the leadership.
Yeah.
So then you think it's really important to invest just as much time in developing yourself as a leader as it is in developing the team you're responsible for.
That's true. At the end of the day, if you can't lead yourself, you can't lead people. That will never happen. If you can't have good, strong, disciplined self-leadership, you do not become a good leader of people because you can't connect. You don't know how to connect. You can't even connect with yourself. And people I've coached who start to connect with their inner self and start to really feel leadership are far more successful than the ones who play around in their headspace and want to compete and play political games and all the sorts of things that your head does. That's not true leadership. You've got to go really into your soul, and that tends to give you the consistency, the warmth, the empathy, the value in leadership that people want to be part of.
Yeah, you use the word there, which I particularly enjoy when I'm reading your material, the word soul. Um, Soul in the leadership community is again kind of one of your core principle
Yep.
aspects of that. Talk to us a little bit about that. What is soul in the leadership community, particularly in today's business world? What does that really mean? You've touched on a couple of parts of that, but I
Yep.
mean, is there? I don't imagine there's a definition as such, but explain what you mean by soul in the leadership
Well,
community.
I guess, when I mean soul, I mean connecting with your inner self. Some people say follow your heart. To me, that's your inner self. Soul, heart, I don't know what the difference is. I don't think there is a difference.
Mm.
But we're meaning the same thing. We call it different things, really. But it means you have more of a feel for the leadership. The business world is more in the headspace more thinking and making decisions and all those sorts of things. So people stay there too long. The leaders who can connect with their staff have to drop down and connect heart to heart.
Yeah.
Connecting with your head to head doesn't really help much at all, right? It doesn't inspire people to want to follow a leader. Now, I was talking to a gentleman the other day who's ex-Marine, and he's led Marines into battle. He's done all sorts of things, and he says exactly the same thing. We tend to think the military is all about giving orders and barking. He said, you can't do that. In time of battle, they've got to instinctively know what to do. So you've got to connect with them to instill that inspiration in them to be thinking for themselves. The days are gone when you'd lead on a horse and lead everyone into battle. He said, that doesn't happen anymore.
So
You're lucky you're all together.
So this is really about building trust then.
And that's right. So you've got to trust those people, and they've got to trust you that you're making the sort of the vision of where we're heading, but how to actually navigate there sometimes can be up to individuals. So as a leader, it's no different. You can't do everything. The world's too dynamic to keep on top of most things. You just got to set the vision, and the way to set it is connect with them. Because if people then start to see what their purpose is in their life and what they enjoy, connects with what that company vision is, then they'll really put in. If they don't connect that, they don't.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we hear often, particularly when we do workshops, and I know you find this as well in some of the workshops, etc. that you do. I think we hear the expression, perhaps not an open session, but certainly when you take people off to the side, you hear this, he just doesn't listen to me, meaning the boss. He just doesn't listen. And I think that's probably one aspect of this new sort of new normal. I kind of hate that phrase, to be honest, but nonetheless.
Well, actually, I'm with you. I hate it. I don't know what normal is. I think everyone has a different definition of it. So why would we be saying a new one?
I know, but I think what happens is that, or what must happen is that leaders must listen more, and certainly they must listen better. They must pay attention to what's being said, because some of the best ideas in the business world come up from underneath. If we can say it that way, they don't always necessarily come C-suite down. So that's right. Is that something that we think the leaders should be looking more at, is to listen more or to listen better? Well,
yeah, we can give those age-old sort of rhetorical statements. You've got 2 ears and 1 tongue, so you should do twice as much listening. But it's true in a lot of ways, and that, to me, that's back to the leading from within. Because when you're connecting with people, in order to connect with them, you've got to hear, you've got to understand them and feel what they're saying and hear. When you're in your headspace, you tend to be thinking about what you're going to say next. When you sit back and thinking and watching people's body language and trying to connect in a more deep and meaningful way, then you're really listening. So the good leaders that I've ever worked for the best leaders ask the best questions. And then they sit back and they listen and actively listen by, so what do you mean by that, Bill? So what you're telling me, Bill, is this, and so it engages conversation, and they're connecting, and that encourages you to be saying more. And you hit it on the head before, is that most ideas come from below, not from the top. And that's always the case. And just like my military friend said, you can't be barking orders down. You'll never win a battle anymore.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think we're all guilty of it, that, we sort of, we're running past somebody's desk and they say, oh, by the way, I need to tell you this. Yeah, okay, yeah. And you kind of listen to it, but by the time you get to the elevator, you've forgotten completely, A, what was said, and B, who said it. You've just
that's right.
And I think that's a part of, we're going to have to slow down just a little bit, sort of thing. So now, this has been part 1. We're going to come back with Ross in a second part. So I think that's about all we have got time for today. So my thanks to Ross Swan in Singapore and my co-host Robin Trimmingham, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks, Robin. Thank you.
Everyone.
Bye.